All right, we talked about cum temporal clauses last time, just taking the indicative and generally showing a time when something occurs. And there's a couple other types of general temporal clauses that also take the indicative, and they tend to be pretty simple, but you just need to know the words that introduce these clauses and be aware of a couple kind of particular rules. So, some of the words you need to know. Make sure you know dum, right? Cum means when, dum means while or until. Kind of default to while, that's more common. Antequam, right? Earlier than, literally, but before, or postquam, afterwards. So, like a cum temporal clause, these all take the indicative since they denote a general a specific point in time, right? The other type of clause you'll see occasionally is dum modo, which means provided that. This is a clause that takes the subjunctive. It follows the normal rules for sequence of tenses, so look in the main clause, see what sequence it is, and then determine whether or not the provided that needs to have happened in the same time or a prior time. So generally, pretty simple rules. Couple things to watch out for as we're doing this. Let's look up some sentences and talk through a couple of the smaller things. So, once again, anytime you're doing any of these types of subordinate clauses, start with the main clause, then go to the subordinate clause to help you kind of figure out what's going on. So, postquam Londinium veni, reginam vidi. So if we go to reginam vidi, right, I saw the queen. Postquam, we looked at postquam meaning later than, or literally later than, but just after. After I came to London, I saw the queen, right? Not that complicated. Sequence of tenses makes sense. Just translate literally. Not so hard. When we move to futures, anytime we have something happening before in the future, instead of just putting both of them in futures, we need to be really careful to use the future perfect. So if we notice the second sentence, reginam videbo, I will see the queen, antiquam, before I will have departed from London. Literally, that's how Latin is always going to do this. I will see the queen before needs a future perfect. I will have left London. In English, we would just say, I will see the queen before I leave, in the present tense, London. Latin, they didn't think of tenses in the same way, so just be really careful when you have that future tense, particularly in the main clause, to be careful and see if the action happens before the future tense to always use the future perfect. So that's one small thing just to kind of watch for. The second thing, dum clauses. Let's look at these two examples. It'll give us a general idea of what's going on. All right. Reginam vidi, I saw the queen, dum Londinii sum. Literally, while I am in London, I saw the queen. Now, in English, we would never say that. We'd say, I saw the queen while I was in London, past tense. But Latin's going to use the present tense with this dum. During the period of time I was at London, at some point in that period, I saw the queen. That's when dum will take the present. Now, the next sentence, dum Londinii eram, while I was in London, felicissimus eram, I was most happy. So the whole time I was in London, I was happy. Then we'll have the imperfect in both parts. So notice the difference between the two. Dum Londinii sum, at a certain period of time while I was in London. During that period of time in the present, I saw the queen, dum plus the present, versus during this entire period of time I was in London, dum Londinii eram, I was happy the whole time. Then you get imperfects at both points. So when dum is referring to a certain point in a period of time, dum will take the present. All right, finally a couple examples with dum modo. Dum modo is really not that hard. Just remember dum modo provided that, and it negates with ne. So if you just watch that, ne quis, ne olus, right, instead of non. So, provided that, ne discedas, reginam videbis. So once again, we'll just go same way, do the main clause. You will see the queen, we're in primary sequence, which will help us figure that out. You will see the queen, provided that you do not depart. Discedas, present subjunctive, because we're in primary sequence, occurring at the same time. All right. Next sentence. Dum modo me cum maneas, nemo te impediat. All right, once again, we see do modo, we know we have this subordinate clause. Let's start with the main one. Impediat, all right, that's a future. No one will impede or hinder you. Now we know we're in primary sequence. Look at the do modo clause. Do modo provided that maneos, present subjunctive, so we're looking at primary sequence, same time, mecum. So no one will impede you, provided that you, maneo, you remain mecum with me. And there you go. So like I said, generally pretty simple. Doom can get tricky just paying attention to when it's supposed to be present. During this whole period of time, I'm indicating a specific point versus the entire time using things like the imperfect. Other than that, really not that hard. Watch out for futures and future perfects. But those are just little rules.